what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to another edition of The Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, pleased to be joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn, the young prodigy, the old soul C.J. Vogel, also joined by our own coach, former high school football coach at Bernie, Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan, also played college football at Abilene Christian and coached there as well, and was on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head football coaches. And now you can catch his work at ShipleyRanches.com. It's our own coach, Bob Shipley. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? Y'all doing good?
Doing good, Coach. Feeling good.
Staying indoors this weather, man.
Man, it ain't even we're not even in the deepest part of the summer yet, and it's already hot outside, man. It's so I'm not feeling good about how hot it's gonna be this summer, but I hope everybody out there who is joining us right now is finding a way to stay cool. We appreciate you guys finding a way to join us as well. We appreciate that. We'll get into a lot of different topics. Matter of fact, holiday edition. So happy Juneteenth to everybody out there. So holiday edition of the Winning Drive. We'll get into a lot of different topics. Dia Bell looking really good at the Elite 11 camp. We'll talk about that. The Longhorns also big recruiting news on the recruiting trail for the Longhorns. A lot of Longhorn fans a little bit disappointed and losing out on another big time recruitment. Also a big recruiting weekend coming up with official visitors. So we'll give my man CJ's thoughts about that. Also ESPN, I believe it's Adam Rittenberg, did a really good piece about the best program that is, I guess, the program that's in a best place to have the best run over the next 2 years. What college football program is best suited to have, the highest odds to win a national title or at least have the most success over the next 2 years. We'll talk about that too, because the Longhorns are getting a lot of love there as well. But of course, the Winning Drive, you guys drive it any direction you want to. Super chats jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. Throw out your questions, comments. We'll try to address as many of them as we can. 72 days until these kickoff to Texas versus Ohio State. So counting down the days until Texas goes. Is it NATO? Is NATO Umeozulu? Is he 72? That's your current 72. Greatest 72. Honestly, I'm at a bit of a loss. Probably the greatest 72. You probably got to go old school. I'm sure my man CB's done a good job of this. He always does a good job of it. So something we can revisit, but I'm sure I bet it's somebody, old school, probably in the 70s or 80s or something like that. All right. So we'll also, shout out to CDC as well. I believe he's celebrating a birthday today. Not mistaken. So shout out to CDC. If I'm not mistaken, around 57. I could be off about a year or so, but shout out to CDC because he's done a great job of ushering a new era of Texas sports and still celebrating, I believe, celebrating another Director's Cup, fourth in the last 5 years for Texas in the Director's Cup. So shout out to CDC as well. I want to get that out of the way. All right. Let's start, CJ, with, I guess, some disappointing news for Longhorn fans. They were expecting Drake Quinn to make an announcement choosing between two shades of orange, Texas and Clemson, and he did choose the Clemson Tigers earlier today.
Yeah, he did. I think coming off of the official visit to Texas this past weekend, there was some momentum for the Longhorns. He spoke pretty highly about his visit, how Texas planned to use him. He said that even it was going to be Texas and Clemson, and ultimately that's what it came down to. Didn't plan on taking the Notre Dame official visit for this weekend, called it off, decided to make his decision today. Yesterday, we reported on Texas Football. We felt like this one was moving towards the direction of Clemson. Evidently, that was the case with Drake Quinn, the 6'4" edge rusher out of Buford, Georgia, committing to the Clemson Tigers. That's a head-to-head over the Longhorns in favor of Dabo Swinney. So, look, I know that Texas, it feels like they're in a rut, right? Sam Roseborough picking Texas A&M, KJ Edwards picking Texas A&M. Now you see Drake Quinn picking Clemson. For Texas, I think they're going to be just fine. On the offensive line specifically, a number of, really John Turntime coming in this weekend. And then, of course, on the defensive end spot, and we can get to this here in a minute, but Texas has some really talented edge rushers visiting this weekend, as well as already having been on campus as well. Another update on the official visits for this upcoming weekend is, Luke Wafel out of New Jersey, the Hun School, he actually committed to USC. So that's 30 commits in the month of June for the USC Trojans. That's a big win over Penn State, where his brother plays currently. Ohio State got involved there late. And, of course, Texas, who he was expected on campus this weekend as well. So is that room for panic? I say no. And Matthew made a great graphic earlier to kind of compare where Texas sits right now in its class versus last year in its class when it ended up being the number one class in the country. Thank you, Matthew. But you see it as of June 19th, 2024, a little bit of a lighter list on the left than what you see on the right. Now, of course, Texas does have 3 specialists confirmed in its 2026 class, but you're basically sitting in the same spot, right? You got your quarterback, you got a few offensive pieces, a pair of offensive linemen, maybe a couple guys on the defensive side of the ball. But other than that, the big dogs in the class remain a little bit later, right? You didn't have a Justice Terry. You didn't have a Cade Phillips. Jamie French, Khalid Lockett, they all came later down the road. I would even argue Texas maybe in a bit of a better spot right now when you consider having a Jermaine Bishop, a 5-star Dia Bell. You look at the defensive line haul of Corey Wells, Dylan Behrman. Texas is in a good spot right now. And, of course, as we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years with Steve Sarkisian, the month of July going into August and into the season, that's where this team really does its work on the recruiting trail. And, of course, Flipmas season's only a few months away.
Yeah, Flipmas. I like that.
Hey, we talked about this on Monday. Do you think, are you still – what are you hearing about guys trying to get their commitments in and their NIL deals done before the end of June?
Yeah, so that's still the case for a lot of guys. And I know that we're still kind of waiting to hear how this is going to be moving once July 1st comes. But, a lot of these decisions are kind of sped up, and I think there's more pen to pad before that decision date. Maybe that lingers into July, if that makes sense, Coach. So kids will sign that financial aid, sign whatever that NIL deal is before July 1st and just say, hey, let me wait till July 4th, 8th, 10th, 12th, whatever. But those decisions for the most part have been made. So if you're looking for some big movement, maybe in the next 10 days, I think there's a window. It's going to be really intriguing to see guys like a Luke Wafel decide from, hey, my decision is probably going to come down to Penn State or Ohio State, and then now commit all the way across the country to USC. And you're sitting there saying, that doesn't really make sense, right? So I think it's going to be really interesting. These next 10 days should be really interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff working behind the scenes that we don't know about. Most people don't know. The coaches probably the only ones that know about it. Yeah,
coaches, agents, family members, keep that all tight-lipped until until it's no longer a secret.
Yeah. Salty Q says, I've learned not to stress this early, recruit through the whistle. Yeah, I mean, I've heard Brandon Harris on interviews, and CJ had the great quote that he bumped from earlier this week from Sark last year. Yet, they really do bet on themselves. That not only their recruiting stamina and persistence with these recruits will pay off, but that when they start to see more of the product come to realization and the vision come to realization, the things the coaches are telling them actually start to happen during the season, you get some of these guys going, oh, actually, nah, the coach told me this was how it was going to go down. He was talking about these guys and how this was going to look, and now it's coming to fruition. So I kind of agree with that. I mean, the coaches have earned our trust at this point. We can discuss it. We can discuss A&M get another big, nothing wrong with that. Get another big commitment. Where they get a cornerback? Was it Brian? Was it Arrington? Is his name or something like that? Nothing wrong with that. Aggies, they hot right now. Good for them. Yeah. They are. There's no doubt. You can acknowledge that the Aggies are on a bit of a recruiting heater. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But also acknowledge that the trend for Texas has been they close strong, they finish strong. You just saw the graphic there. So I know some Longhorns are kind of panicking with it. I agree with the Longhorn fans here who basically are siding with the coaches that, hey man, they've earned the trust of the coaches at this point. It's different type of recruiting though, right, CJ? In terms of some of these, I mean, it's just more big time recruiting. You're in a different conversation now, considering what you've done, uplifting the program. Where you uplifted the program, now you're in a different conversation. And that's great, but that's just how some of these big time recruitment is going to go. They heavyweight fights.
Yeah, 100%. And I kind of liken it in the saying, big tree fall hard. Y'all ever heard that one? I'm sure you have, Coach.
Yeah.
You probably use that pretty often, right?
Yeah, but did anybody hear that big tree fall?
So that's the two ways I wanted to go with this. A big tree, that's a big recruit. If you don't land them, it's going to fall hard. It's going to feel like a significant loss, right? You're going to feel the feathers of it, the ripple effects, basically, is what I'm saying. However, Coach, if it's a big tree, but it's not one of those big high priority guys on your list, well, it doesn't matter. If you lose a guy from the in-state that's a 3-star, maybe not, right? Maybe if it's not one of those guys that you have high on your board, maybe if it's not necessarily going to be a guy that moves the needle when it comes to talking about him. So it all comes in spurts. But when Texas is recruiting big trees across the country, look, you're not going to land all these big trees, right? Some of them are going to fall, and they're going to feel much more significant when they don't go your way. And I think that's what happened with a Drake Quinn. I think that's what happened with a Sam Roseboro. Texas will land their big trees. By the end of this, they're going to have a forest, right?
Yeah.
They'll get to that point. They have every year, essentially. So that's kind of the big thing. I wish my camera would stop lagging real quick. I'm making some funky faces on this screen. But point being is when you recruit nationally, when you really get to these big-time guys across the country, it feels more significant of a loss because of where these guys might be rated, because of the hype around them, because of the schools that are winning these recruitments. But Texas is going to be just fine. They always have.
Yeah. No, like I said, I'm with you on that. And considering what Sark has done the last 3 years in recruiting, it's been a trend where they've gotten better and better in these recruiting classes, and they've closed strong each of those years. I'm assuming that'll be the same thing this year. And once again, they'll bet on themselves. And I think we all agree Texas is going to have a hell of a year, and it should pay off, pay huge dividends in recruiting. All right, we'll take some questions. Let's first thank our first sponsor of the afternoon, our friends over at Advanced Pain Care. We appreciate them and all of their support. So let's give them a shout actually right now. Considering 2 lifetime Longhorns, my man Cole McCoy and Vince Young, giving you a message from our friends over at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right, let's take our first question here. Is this one's from King. He said, is there a reason why Texas didn't recruit edge Kevin Ford hard?
They brought him in for a few visits. I don't think his measurables stack up to that of those kind of lengthier guys. I think his arms might be a little bit short. I think this is a guy that his quickness is his biggest strength, but you don't have the Colin Simmons wingspan. You don't have the Smith Orogbo, the wingspan off the edge. And of course, I think further along with a number of other guys. So I saw that he might be taking an official visit to Ohio State. I think that would be a big deal for Kevin. If he ends up at Ohio State, that'd be quite the landing spot. But ultimately, I think Texas was further along in some other evaluations. And of course, coming off of landing 2 really talented, longer limbed guys off the edge.
All right. Thank you for that question, King. We appreciate that. How about this one from On My Soapbox? Wants to know, how do you feel about Felix Ojo at this point?
Yeah, still good. Still good. The 5-star caliber offensive lineman out of Mansfield Lake Ridge. 5-star kid, 6'7", 280 pounds. Still has plenty of room to grow in his body. I still feel good coming out of the official visit about the Longhorns landing him. If Texas does not land him, I'd actually be pretty surprised.
What's the timeline on him, do you think?
It's a good question. This is a guy who I actually think enjoys kind of that recruiting spotlight quite a bit, Coach. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if he holds out. Now, Rod, we talked about it a little bit last night. Coaches might not like these decisions lingering all the way into December, but for a select few every cycle, you play that game a little longer rather than just going and finding the next guy who's saying, hey, I'm done. I want to be in a class, right? For Ojo, I think he's a guy that might try to extend it longer. I think he's a guy who, even after he commits, might take some visits in the fall to see a few campuses as well. I think a late July, early August decision probably for Ojo feels about right. He mentioned that first 2, 3, 4 weeks of his senior season as a timeline for him whenever he's ready to make a decision.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for this question on my soapbox. How about this one from Texas Boy Wonder? Says, with more states allowing high school NIL, does it work across state lines? Can Texas pay a Georgia high school senior recruit? That's a good question. Is it about the player that's coming, about what school you're committing to? And as opposed to, as a result of that, whatever state law, there are different, obviously, states that have passed these laws where a prospect can now cash in on NIL before, obviously, they sign their letter of intent. They can actually be offered an NIL deal, and they can commit to that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's about the school you're committing to and that state law, or the state law of the prospect of the high school that he's in. Like, which one is it? Do we know?
I feel like there's 3 different avenues. It's one, hey, high school kids can get paid by basically, businesses in high school, right, as high schoolers. And then you focus it towards the college ranks, and it's almost a state-to-state kind of situation where only the in-state schools can, or players in the state committed to state schools can benefit from NIL at the high school ranks.
I got you.
Whereas there are other states that allow any player who is committed anywhere and assign that financial aid or whatever agreement it is to then benefit as well. So,
because isn't it the goal to keep the players in the state?
I would think so.
Isn't that part of the goal, is that you want, since you're looking at it that, football is a business, you want to keep the best players in the state going to those state schools. And to your point, you would make it where, players from high school in that state can benefit, but also if they go to that state school, or the school in that state, I should say, they can also benefit from NIL. That's what I would hope the law would try to do. That's what I would try to do if I was a politician. I want to keep the kids in state.
Or even through their senior year.
Exactly. Like, you don't want the Quinn Ewers rule, right? You want to keep Quins, the future Quins, in state, going to state schools. I would think that would be the hope of, like, that would be the spirit of the law, that they would be trying to keep them in the state.
I agree.
Yeah.
Where is the state of Texas on that, CJ?
I believe in Matthew, I might have you double check this here in a minute. I believe they just passed a law for NIL to be received by.
Yeah, they did. Mm-hmm.
So, Rod, we talked about kids staying all the way through. We called it the Quinn Ewers bill at the time, making sure that they're not missing out on the developmental years of their life to get a dollar, right? It still means something to finish out your high school career, but I think Texas just passed that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There you go.
Kids, athletes who are 17 years or older are eligible to enter into NIL agreements, but the earnings from these deals are deferred until they enroll in college. Okay. So hey.
So you can agree to it, and you just don't get you don't get it until you enroll in college.
Yeah, it's like a trust fund almost.
Yeah. Okay. So so essentially, you can commit to that deal when you're 17 years old. Yeah, that would be the goal, to try to keep them, I would think, in the state.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. All right. That's why Matthew's the best. Appreciate you, Matthew. How about this question from Daniel? Wants to know, Rod, what was your favorite game to play in? Oh man, favorite game to play in had to be, Texas OU. There's nothing's going to beat Texas OU. Now, if you're talking about my experience, I didn't win a lot of them games. So honestly, experience-wise, I was 1-3 versus OU. So honestly, not my best experience. Favorite games to look forward to and play in, there's no doubt, because that was always marquee opponent, elite, opponent, top 10 teams going against each other. But anytime I had to play against a really good receiver, I really enjoyed it. Like, I really, Oklahoma State had Rashawn Woods at the time. I think he went first round. The Aggies had some good receivers back in the day. So that was always fun. I look forward to, of course, that goes with Oklahoma once the air raid came in. But even those prolific offenses, right? I enjoyed those Texas Tech games because I knew they were going to throw the football. They're going to toss it. Clifford was going to chunk it a ton. And, we knew as a DB, hey, I'm going to get a lot of reps. I'm going to get a lot of targets in this game. So anytime I'm playing a team that like to throw the football a lot, which once the Big 12 became a passing league, and I was there at the inception of it, right? When, Mike Leach first came into the league as the offensive coordinator for Bob Stoops. But anytime you played against a prolific passing team, a really good receiver, those are games I look, other than the rival games. I mean, I can give you Texas OU and Texas A&M, but that's a boring, answer. Just throw that out there. I'm a DB. I want to play against really good wide receivers. We played, what was the guy's name in Washington? Really good. Maybe Mike Williams? There was a lot of receivers named Mike Williams. I want to say it might have been like Mike Williams or something like that for Washington back in the day. He was really good. I want to say he ended up getting drafted pretty high. I went against one of them. Was that his name? My CTE is kicking in. But he was a really good receiver for Washington. Anytime I played a receiver that everybody was talking about that was legit, I remember Bethel Johnson was drafted in the second round from the Aggies. He was really good. That's a game that personally I look forward to. Yeah, I knew the scouts were going to be looking at that game. I had to show up. So, all right. Thank you. Good question, Daniel. I appreciate that. All right. Before we move on, let's thank another one of our sponsors for today's program. Let's thank our friends over at Vaughn Lane. Let me look at this. Reggie Williams. And that must have been it. It must have been Reggie Williams.
Speed 817 hit it on the dot. What a pull.
It must have been it. Yeah, I knew it was a Williams. Maybe it wasn't Mike. Maybe it had to be Reggie. I don't know where he was drafted, but I thought he was drafted pretty good. Was he? I think he was really tall. The Washington team had a bunch of really tall players. They had some freaks. They had a tight end that was maybe 6'8", 6'7". I'm not joking. He was really, really tall. He was a freak. Anyway, I'll look it up here in a second. But let's thank another one of our sponsors before we move on, our friends over at Vaughn Lane. We appreciate them and their ongoing support. If you are trying to get between and to the major Texas cities, Houston, Dallas, DFW, San Antonio, Austin, it can be a bit of a toss-up. Do you deal with the airport chaos and all the stress dealing with an airport and hoping your flight isn't delayed? Or do you brace yourself for hours behind the wheel, battling traffic and road rage and burning an entire day of productivity? Well, the third option is better in each and every way. Our friends at Vaughn Lane offer a luxurious experience traveling between and to the major Texas cities. I've taken it several times myself to DFW. I've taken it to Houston as well. I love it. My wife has taken it several times. She loves it. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. You settle into a plush leather seat, a hot towel, pillow, and blanket are at arm's reach. Your attendant offers complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, a full meal if you'd like. And if you need to relax, you can lean back and enjoy the ride. And if you want to stay productive, there's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. While you're unplugging, you are powering through, the Vaughn Lane team will be monitoring traffic in real time and using smarter routes and efficient detours to keep your trip smooth and on schedule. And now is the perfect time to plan your fall travel. Booking is open through September. So whether you're headed to a college football game, a weekend getaway, or a business trip that needs to be done right, Vaughn Lane makes the journey part of the reward. Vaughn Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and in the Southeast, Atlanta, Nashville, and Memphis as well. Visit VaughnLane.com and use the code OTF25, that's OTF25, to save $20 off your first ride with Vaughn Lane. Vaughn Lane, elevated regional bus transportation. Thank you very much to our friends at Vaughn Lane for sponsoring the winning drive. We really appreciate it. All right. Reggie Williams. All right, there you go. Okay. 9th over. Damn. He was drafted that high. He was 6th.
He was drafted 9th overall. Ooh.
Goodness. I didn't realize he was drafted that high. Yeah, see, there you go. Boom. Yeah.
6'4", 230, Rod. What a tank.
No, that was back when Coach, you remember when the receivers back then, they was huge, man, back in the day.
Yeah.
Rashawn Brooks was probably 6'3", something like that. They were big. They didn't emphasize necessarily speed. They were just bigger, all big receivers. That's why Quentin Jammer, random nugget, shout out to Quentin Jammer. He's celebrating a birthday today. So shout out to my man, Quentin Jammer celebrating the B-Day. My man CB told me that on the chat. I think he listed it via social media as well. But shout out to Quentin Jammer. But that's why Quentin Jammer, they moved him to corner. He was playing safety initially. They moved him to corner because he matched up well with all these really big-bodied wide receivers that had become popular at the time. And that's part of why the NFL loved him, because they were drafting all these kind of guys really high in the draft, big-body wide receivers, so they needed a big-body corner that could match up and play bump and run, and Quentin Jammer was a freak. Dude, yeah, I mean, so I remember that too. And I'm trying to think of the name of the tight end now. Oh, man. At one point, he married like a soccer player, like a famous soccer player, something. I forget his name. He was really tall too. I'll figure it out. Or Matthew will start looking it up. You don't have to look it up, Matthew. I know Matthew's already probably behind the scenes. All right, let's get to some more questions here. Jedi Master Bevo says, CJ, with the current running back recruiting up in the air right now, not to look ahead, but what does 2027 running back recruiting look like?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Texas has a number of offers extended right now. Obviously, Landon Williams-Callis is one that really comes to mind. He's only about 5'8", maybe, so smaller frame, but ran about a 10.3, 10.4 in the 100-meter not too long ago. He's going to be one of the, I believe, all-time state rushing leaders when it comes down to the end of his career. Another one is Lathan Wissington out of Waco. I believe he's at Midway, if I'm remembering correctly. He was a guy that visited at camp on June 1st, and I heard from a few folks that were there that he was one of the best running backs in attendance regardless of classification. So I'd keep an eye on Landon Wissington. I don't know right now if Texas has extended an offer to him, but he's up to about 17, 18 offers at the moment. Going to be one of the top backs in the state of Texas for 2027. So look, I know Texas fans have pretty high standards when it comes to running back recruiting, and rightfully so. We've seen some pretty remarkable running backs over the last few years at Texas. But 2026, you got to kind of readjust that board at the moment, but they think that they're right there in the mix for an Xavier Crowell, who decides 1 week from today.
Thank you, Jedi Master Vivo. We appreciate that. CB says Jeremy Stevens, right? Thank you, Will. Jeremy Stevens. Appreciate that, CB. That's the name of the tight end. Yeah, he was huge. He's like 6'7", and he married.
That could be good or bad.
Yeah, I don't think it did not work out. I don't believe it worked out. But yes, that was the name. Thank you, CB, for reminding me of that. Yeah, there you go. Good stuff there. All right, let's get to. I want to get to these Elite 11 reports. And I don't even know. It might be said I got to keep up with it with the latest Elite 11 reports. But the reports coming out of Elite 11, and for those who don't know what it is, it's basically just a quarterback camp for the best quarterbacks around the country. They do them regionally. They do like a national one. I'm not sure. CJ might have even been to one of these things, but for all I know. I mean, CJ's always out and about. But Dia Bell, a lot of people are predicting him to be the MVP. I saw a couple of tweets about this, about Dia Bell having such a great showing at the Elite 11 camp that he could potentially be the MVP. I don't know if you've how much you've seen of Dia Bell in person, CJ. I know you always get out and watch these guys, so I just want to get your thought about it. I know you've watched a lot of them. But first of all, what does it mean to be potentially the MVP of these Elite 11 camps where you perform well? But also Dia Bell overall, what are your thoughts of him as a prospect coming in? He's definitely seems to be kind of the I don't know, the figurehead or kind of the face of the class right now. Yeah. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I think he's got it between the ears. And I think at the quarterback position, that's as important as just about anything else that you can bring to the table when it comes to athleticism, arm strength, accuracy, etc. So he certainly has that going for him. The other thing for Dia is very likable guy. A guy that you see on the overtime 7-on-7 circuits. You obviously see him at the Elite 11. Guys that kind of flock to him. The arm talent's there. And I'll say this, and I'd love to get Coach's thoughts whenever he gets back in. Look, he's on campus for his official visit this weekend. Texas last year brought in KJ Lacey the same weekend. They had Jamie French, Khalid Lockett, Nick Townsend, a number of guys on their offensive side of the ball that ended up being big-time gets for their class. it helps having the face of your franchise, the face of the future on campus for these recruiting events. And I think that is very much the case for Dia Bell in this class. I think that you look at kind of the way that I hate the word aura, but he kind of attracts folks like that. So if he's able to come back with some sort of win, or I don't know what they call it, a Elite 11 champion, if that's what, if he's able to do that and get to campus this weekend holding that title with a number of 5-star caliber guys on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to go a long way in my eyes. Say, hey, we're going to have the offensive side of the ball figured out. Now it's up to you guys as the missing link on the front seven, rushing the passer, playing cornerback, linebacker, whatever it might be. Coach, was that a strategy for y'all back in the day? Is, hey, get the big names together? I know it was a little bit different rather than having just the 3 big weekends in June, but
yeah. Actually, just to be real honest, we didn't have a lot of big name guys, but yeah, certainly you did. In fact, when we first started out, things were in pretty bad shape, whenever Herman came in, they were really bad shape. So at first it was getting our big name guys like Vince and Colt and things like that, Huff Daddy and guys like that in with the recruits and, try to win some over that way. But then, yes, after you started getting some name, no doubt you wanted the big guys to come in, especially your commits that were very outgoing. You wanted them to do their official visits with other guys that you were trying to get so that, they would be an influence. But, I'm going to tell you there was some times, and it's no secret that, in the recruiting process, there was even a player or two on the team that was telling recruits not to come.
Right.
And so that's those were dark times, and wow, has the tide changed on that.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. I've heard the stories, as well, and things have certainly changed for the better for Texas. The big kind of notable tidbit that I remember from Sarkisian and his staff going about using the surrounding prospects to help recruit another prospect was that 2022 offensive line class. You look at Cam Williams, you look at Kelvin Banks, there's at one point before both of those guys had committed to Oregon, they're on campus in the spring. They're going through a spring visit, much like we see this cycle with the spring unofficials. And you got Cole Hudson, you got Connor Robertson, a couple other big offensive line guys. I think Harris Sewell was in that class. And sure enough, you had Arch Manning right next to him. And he's, of course, the class after, but I don't think it was by coincidence. I think that was by design. Say, Arch, come in this weekend. Look at your future bodyguards. Look at the guys that we're going to have blocking for you. And I don't know if that actually played a factor or not, but ultimately the offensive line played has been a complete 180 from what we've seen in years past. So I always think that they do that little visitation, tricks to get guys on campus with others to help lure them into the class, or at least bring out another side of Austin that they didn't know.
No, it makes sense because the best recruiters are players because there's no rules that apply to players.
Yeah.
Right. What coach, whether you're talking about guys in their own class or former, let's say, you went to high school with a guy or you had this previous relationship, or even meeting them on an official visit, a guy that's already on the roster. And you say, hey, man, can I get your information? Or, hey, y'all met on social media. There are no rules for players. Players can do whatever the hell they want to do in terms of recruiting. If they feel that committed and devoted to, hey, man, I want to help build and stack this class. Coaches have rules about stuff they can do. If a player wants to be he wants to be the point man for a recruiting class, he's like, no, I can hit up all these guys. I can tell you what, I can get back with you and let you know where so-and-so is and what his mindset is. That's a huge asset. I don't know how often that happens, Coach, but I know it happens. I just don't know if, it happens all the time that guys are that devoted. But I know some guys have been I remember some of the best recruiters in a class because now they have the ability to communicate and contact all those guys.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think it does happen. And, I do want to go back and say one particular instance that I knew of. I think it wasn't because the guy wasn't happy. It was because he was afraid the guy would take his position away from him.
Oh.
And on the field if he came.
That's real.
More specific than that, but
that's real though. I mean, that's reality.
But again, it's in the current culture. I can't see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It is what it is.
And Coach, I always say in the NFL, every player who's on our NFL roster is watching the NFL draft and saying the same thing. I hope they don't draft my position. I hope we get better, but I just don't hope they don't draft my position.
I bet that's right. I never thought about that. Yeah.
It's like, as soon as they draft that corner in the 4th round, you go, damn. I got my contract. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's just reality of it. So there is some of that. I get that. That's reality.
Well, and in the NFL, it's just like college too. When you go out and sign a bunch of guys at your position, that's the coach's way of telling you that we may think we can do better than you.
Exactly. No, trust me. I've watched plenty of those, and yep, it always hurts. All right, let's get to. Oh, you know what? Before we get to the next question, I want to get back to the Dia Bell thing just really quickly, because I will say this about Sark, and this is why you do feel like Texas is about to embark on a very special run. They've already started. Give props to Sark, back-to-back Final Fours. But Coach, you remember this when, and Coach, you probably had some of these experiences as a coach as well. When you can stack the quarterbacks and you can get good quarterback, put like this, you can get quarterbacks who are NFL caliber quarterbacks in back-to-back campaigns, whether it be 2-year start or multi-year starting campaigns. And Mac did that, right? Mac, and I know, I'm not saying James Brown and Major, and I said they were NFL quarterbacks. I think Major was in a training camp. And I'm sure James Brown had his shot too, but in terms of guys who got drafted, but once he started stacking, by the way, that was a pretty good run of QBs too. I mean, James Brown wasn't no slouch. He won some conference championships, and Major Applewhite was Big 12 Freshman of the Year, I believe. So those guys were legit in their own right. Then you brought in Chris Sims, 5-star, Gatorade All-American. Actually, that didn't exist back then. He was the Parade All-American. I think he was the #1 player in the country at the time. Then he's your next quarterback. I think Chance Mott, you stacked it there as well. Then you got Vince Young. Then you got Colt McCoy. I mean, that's really the truth of it is, and Mac did a lot of other great things well. But the number one reason Texas was able to go on that run they were on is because they had so much great quarterback play consistently. When Mac really hit his stride, from the Major Sims to Chance Mott, and give him props to Vince Young, and then to, of course, Colt McCoy. I think with the Dia Bell thing, watching that, and then looking, of course, you got KJ Lacey in there as well. The future is really bright for Texas coaching. I think that's why Texas could potentially go on another run, that like we've seen Mac in his prime.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at, and that's why a lot of people that really keep up with this and really keep up with recruiting and all that are not freaking out right now. There wasn't too many years ago we would be freaking out right now. But, how many times do the Aggies fire blank in the season, and then, they're going, oh, man, we really are little brother, and then they'll have a, so you're telling me there's a chance, and they'll, but that's such a hard roller coaster, because we were on that roller coaster for a long time. I've made the between where we were whenever Sark got here. That's where A&M is now, and you just looking for something to grab onto. It's just it's funny how that roller coaster works, and we're at a point now where we're expected to land the top 2 or 3 class in the country every single year, and you have faith in the recruiters and the process and that culture bringing those guys in, and it's sure fun to be where we're at right now in this cycle.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong. especially looking forward to the quarterback position. We talked about Diabell coming in this weekend, but you're able to stack a Quinn on an Arch, and then you look at Trey Owens, who I think we all have high hopes for.
Mm-hmm.
And you get KJ Lacey in the fold, who was just the second highest passing quarterback in Alabama State high school football history. That's pretty darn good, if you ask me, on top of, Diabell potentially winning the Elite 11. So Texas figuring out that quarterback position, it felt like a rut for quite a while. Right now, I think Sark's got it going pretty well.
Hey, it didn't feel like it. It was.
I wanted to be nice, Coach.
It was.
It was.
After Colt left, it was just really hard to find the consistency at the quarterback position for several years.
Yeah.
No, and Garrett was a good quarterback, by the way. We know that now. We know that this is not all the quarterback's fault, because Garrett Gilbert went on.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Played in the league, Super Bowl. Belichick liked him.
Still might be. Is he still? I know he was on the roster last season, I think.
I'm not sure. That's a great question, Coach. I probably should need to look that up.
Yeah.
He played for a long time. So
yeah.
The point that Coach is, the issue that Coach brought up, it was not just they were all duds at QB. Texas had some major macro issues.
Lots of issues.
Yeah. And we put a lot on that young man's plate, but Garrett Gilbert ended up being a hell of a quarterback. And I'll say this about Trey Owens. I see a lot of Trey Owens talk in the chat here. I feel like Trey Owens, like I said, I've been on the record saying this. I don't think he's gonna finish his eligibility here at Texas. I think he's gonna go somewhere else and play, because I think he's really, really good. I kind of see what happened kind of with Malik Murphy. Like, he helps you stabilize the position in a way. But then at some point he decides, you know what, I'm not waiting around. And most of these quarterbacks, like I said, I think the belief is that Arch is going to have another year. And, that there seems to be, at least at Texas, a different kind of quarterback culture where some of these quarterbacks are willing to be patient. And when you got a Manning that's willing to be patient, which kind of has been their family kind of MO, they all have been patient in this process. They understand the importance of development. Other quarterbacks, I think you may get them also to be like, hey man, Arch Manning waited his turn, just so you know. And so I don't know how Sark has done it, but he's now got a very unique culture where I think he may get quarterbacks, which unlike anywhere else, most of them to stay around long enough to keep the position stabilized. So you never had, like Texas had a lot of instability at quarterback at times back in the day with guys transferring and injuries at quarterback and guys switching positions, all this kind of stuff. Now, and shout out to Shane Buechele and Bam Bam Sam will help Texas stabilize the quarterback position finally. Shout out to those guys. But you need consistency, not only at the starter position, somebody to be a multiple year starter for you, but you do need the backup position to be solidified, guys, because the odds are Texas will see their backup play, will start a game. Yeah. That just has been the trend in the last 20 some years at Texas. And you got to have that position stabilized. And I think for Sark, he's done a really good job of stabilizing the entire position, not just making sure your starter is, the marquee guy.
It's why you go out of Matthew Caldwell. And we've talked about that, but you got two really talented guys that you recruited and are, still kind of figuring things out, developing on their own. But, you're going to need a guy more times than not. And we've seen it over the last 15 years, really. Texas is going to use multiple quarterbacks in a year. If that guy's not ready, well, then your quarterback spot just goes back to zero, right? It goes back to the rut that it was in even before. So to have that spot as deep as possible, Rod, to your point, it's just as important as having the guy. Yep.
No doubt. It's a great point to bring up. I forgot all about that Matthew Caldwell example. All right, let's take another sponsor before we move on here. We'll take some more questions, and I got a couple other more topics for you. But let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Flat Creek Estate Winery folks, really appreciate them and their ongoing support of On Texas football. Just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. As a matter of fact, congrats are in order for our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. The Super Texan just last week won the San Francisco Wine Award with a score of 98 out of 100. Yeah, almost perfect. Almost perfect. Really close. 98 out of 100. It was named the top red blend in the country. It's not just the best red blend in Texas. It's the best in the country, folks. So I've been telling you, my wife loves that Super Texan. We get it, but it don't stay on the counter very long. It's fantastic. My mom and her mom actually got a chance to enjoy it over the holidays. They have it at your local Specs. I saw it displayed at our local Central Market as well. The Super Texan now available at HEBs across the states. You can get it there. But not only is the Super Texan great, but love the Pinot Grigio. The rosé is really good. So not only do our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery produce some of the best premium wines on the market, but they also have a gorgeous venue with barbecues, wine tasting every single weekend, perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com. And once again, congrats in order for them. Once again, the Super Texan proven it is not only one of the best blends in Texas, but they're taking it national. It's one of the best blends that you'll taste in the entire country. So thank you to Flat Creek Estate and thank you to them for their ongoing support of On Texas Football and sponsoring the winning drive. Boom!
Hey!
Nice. There you
Pretty
go.
cool deal right there. That's the first Texas Longhorns quarterback to win the MVP of the Elite 11. You see it there. The rankings are also on the bottom right. He beat out Keyshawn Henderson out of the San Antonio area, committed to Houston. Pretty talented quarterback class as well. But, hey, it certainly helps when you can look at your recruiting class and say, we've got a pretty good quarterback coming in. And that's kind of, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, especially with this June 20th official visit weekend set to kick off tomorrow. For these defensive end guys, for these front seven guys, for even some of these offensive guys to say, this is the guy that will eventually be leading your class when it's time for you to maximize your potential, the chance of winning a national championship, or at least the buy-in to that thought, is significantly higher when you can point to a quarterback that's pretty well regarded and talented.
That's really good. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. Like I said, it was trending that way. I saw a lot of the talk on social media. That's why I wanted to discuss it with you guys, was that he was trending toward being the MVP. He had been really impressive in all of the workouts there so far. So, and it's basically, and I don't know, CJ, I don't know if you've been to these or not. We're just talking about quarterback drills and 7-on-7. Basically what it is.
Yep.
Pretty much. Okay. So it's quarterback drills and 7-on-7. Coach, did you were coaching during the 7-on-7 like explosion, right? Well, how did you differentiate it as a coach? Because they're basically different seasons now in Texas. Like these guys, they got a championship and everything for a 7-on-7. Back when I was coming up, we just, I don't know, had an agreement with like a school or something. We'd go play 7-on-7 against them, or like our district, we would do something like that. But now it is its own phenomenon, its own season. How did you, did you actually care about it at all? Did it matter? Did you want it to translate?
Yeah, I did care about it because you're competing. And that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see competing. I wanted to see footwork with our receivers and our DBs and our quarterbacks, you know. It's just it was just really good, you know, because we ran our regular coverage. When we first started 7-on-7, we just ran 2-man all the time. Just man under 2 deep.
I remember that.
And that's what we did. And then we got thinking, now what are we trying to win here? You know, we don't run any 2-man during the season, you know, so what are we trying to win? So we just run our basic coverage, and it is what it is, but it's just getting more reps. It's more, we run our same offense. A lot of guys would, there's a particular team that was always at the state tournament and always made a lot of noise down there. But they were running these little jicky plays that, I mean, they're shoveling the ball to somebody right where a guard or tackle would be.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's nothing like in fact, they didn't even throw the ball. You know, they just had a 7-on-7 offense and a 7-on-7 defense.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that does you much good. I mean, your kids get, you know, a lot of reps and stuff, but it's not what good does it do if the reps aren't your reps that you're going to be doing in the fall. When Jordan was playing, there was only one division. If you were Class A or 5A, there was only 5 divisions, 5A back then. There was no difference. I mean, they just had, you crowned one champion. And so we were 3A, and we wound up meeting Odessa Permian in the 5A finals.
Wow.
And we had four guys going both ways, and Jordan was one of them. And Jordan, we always put Jordan on their best receiver at corner. And he just we lost to Permian in the finals in the championship game. It was on Fox Southwest back then at Kyle
Wow.
Field. And then on the way home, Jordan went into a full body cramp and we had to stop and get him an IV. He was incredibly dehydrated because you play so many games.
Yeah, you do.
In a 2-day period, you play so many games, and you got to come back. And he's never came off the field. Never did come off the field, and neither did some of his teammates because we were a smaller school and we just had to go both ways.
Yeah.
And then Jackson came back at Brownwood, going into his senior year. We won the Division II championship that year, and we were ranked number 1 the whole season. Okay. And they got beat by Carthage the year they won in a heartbreaker in the semifinals. The year they won their 3rd straight championship. But I thought it was awesome. If you run your stuff, there's no doubt. Now, obviously, Dia wasn't running his stuff. He was just showcasing his arm and his footwork and, things like that. But I still think that, those guys were probably coached to read, on this play, this is going to be your read. So it's still, it's still good. Reading is reading and reacting is reacting. And, some guys had a hard time. I had a really good quarterback, but he 1 year, in fact, he played in the old Big 12. But he had a difficult time anticipating a guy coming open, and so he would wait till he was open to throw it. And you can't do that.
Yeah, it's too
because
late.
when you can do it in high school, if you've got a great receiver and you've got a good group of receivers and you've got a rocket for an arm. But when you get to the next level, those holes, every level you go up, high school, college, NFL, those windows get tight and tight and tight.
Coach, cornerbacks go from looking like me to Rod. That talks about the difference in windows.
Yeah. So you have to be able to anticipate, this guy breaking open, and that's just reps. You have to build your confidence and the anticipation and know what the DBs are doing. And I think it's a great thing. I don't like the select 7-on-7 stuff necessarily because it's not doing anything to help your high school program, really. You're not working on your stuff. They just have they have a notebook and they stand up, like scout team. They show you the plays, what everybody's doing, and you go do it. And other than the competition part of it, competing is competing. We had a ping pong table in our field house, and those guys, even after 2 days, I'm like, dude, it's 9:00. Let's go home. And they're out there, they're playing ping pong doubles, and they got tournament going, just competing. And that's what 7-on-7 does, I think, if nothing else.
No, I'm with you. And I'm with you. I remember Coach Nolan, who was our coach at the time, saying, no, we're going to run our stuff. If we get beat running our stuff, that's just either we're not executing it right or, hey, that's okay. Right? It's just not actual football. We need y'all to act because, sometimes back in the day, we didn't have coaches out there with us. We would just be us.
Yeah, you couldn't coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe now you can. I don't know
exactly. Back then.
Yeah, but I have my younger brother who was the 3rd leading receiver in the history of TCU. I don't know where he is now on the rankings, but he was our coach, and he had a cell phone on him. I remember being up at Kyle Field calling plays on the telephone in the state championship game. But anyway,
that's great. That's awesome.
One more thing on the Dia thing. Obviously, winning Elite 11 impressive. A lot of those coach stationary, kind of just throwing the stationary targets. Making sure that you can hit a net, throw to a depth, whatever it is. But they do have they bring in their own wide receivers from the area. Does it say anything to you that he's able to just find that connection with guys that he's never thrown to as well?
Absolutely. Especially, I'm sure that in his high school, they probably have some. He's number 6 all time now. Okay. I'm sure he's number 5 on career receiving yards. Okay. I'm sure that they have the similar concepts, because, everybody runs, 4 verticals and, everybody runs, a dig, a 15-yard dig with a deep post over the top or stuff like that. So, I'm sure it's the same concepts, but yeah, I mean, for him to go in and be that sharp, throw 4 touchdowns in the championship game or whatever. I mean, yeah, that says an awful lot about him. The question I have for you, CJ, is how do you stack him up against KJ Lacey?
That's a good question. I think KJ has a little bit more, I'm losing the word, intuitiveness to him, maybe some more creativity. Yeah, I think he's a little bit more loosey-goosey, and I don't mean that in terms of where the ball goes, but his creativeness than Dia. I think Dia is a little bit more polished from a technical side, and I think that's more because, look, they both have basketball backgrounds, but I think earlier on, Dia started to prioritize playing the quarterback position, going to go see lessons, making sure that my drop back, my feet are right, my arm and everything moving in the right direction is where it needs to be. And I think when you watch KJ, you still see a little bit more of that improvisation is how I would describe KJ.
Kind of like Vince or Johnny Manziel type person.
I would say there's a little Manziel behind the line of scrimmage to KJ, more so than Dia for sure. And that to me goes back to that point guard mentality for KJ. And again, this was a travel ball circuit guy. He played with Riley Leonard back in the day in basketball. And he actually told me the big reason why he stopped playing basketball is because he met Riley Leonard in the paint one day and he was like, you know what, I've had enough. Riley Leonard, for those that don't remember, he's about 6'5". So that's a big boy coming down the lane. And KJ's kind of built like me, 5'9", 5'10", right in that range, right? We don't stand a chance against guys like that in the paint. But the point is, when you have that basketball mentality, you don't know when you need to flick a ball off to the left when you're driving through the paint. You see things differently, and it doesn't always make sense to be the most technical chest pass, right? Normally when you're taught the chest pass, your thumbs are down, right? That's the motion. You just get the ball where it needs to go. And I think there's a lot of that for KJ. So he's not the most technically, sound guy, but I love the way that he just gets the ball where it needs to go at any point. So that's the big difference for me, technically at least.
Yeah.
I feel like Sark is recruiting more of those quarterbacks who have the creativity you're discussing, that natural second reaction ability, that off-script ability, the improvisation ability. Because Arch
just get it done.
Yes.
Right. Just get it done.
Yeah.
Find a way.
Well, look at that, Rod. I mean, I don't know if Trey Owens played basketball.
Trey Owens is not that, and Quinn wasn't that, but
right.
Arch is that. KJ
Arch was
Lacey
a basketball kid.
Yeah,
that's true. Arch was a basketball kid. KJ Lacey, Diabell, all basketball kids. And if you look at Kavian Bryant, who's potentially coming in, I don't want to get ahead of myself. That's a guy Texas just offered, 2027 class. Look, he has multiple Division I offers for basketball. So that point guard mentality, that might be one of the big questions I asked Steve Sarkisian when we get closer.
That'd be a great question.
Because there's a lot of pinpoints going in the same direction here.
I agree with that. I honestly applaud him if it's by design, because I think you need those quarterbacks now. The NFL is looking for more of those quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels is that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you need more of those quarterbacks that, like, coach, even when the defense makes you wrong or the play call is wrong, because nobody's perfect, so that's going to happen, the quarterback can make you right.
That's right.
And Colt was that. We saw Colt do it. Colt did. VY did it. Those guys, I think those are the kind of quarterbacks. I think Sark wants that little bit of ability, and I think Arch has got some of that as well. I really do. Mm-hmm. Okay, speaking of Arch, I wanted to get to this, Matthew, if you could pull it up. It's from ESPN. They did a breakdown, basically looking at programs who are best situated to have success over the next 2 years in college football. They want to look at 25 and 26. So it's basically I think they call it their power rankings through 26. So looking at the next 2 years here, and the categories that they evaluated were returning quarterback, likelihood of a multi-year quarterback, multi-year starter at quarterback, I should say, offensive line, defensive line, outlook, roster management, star power, looking at possible All-Americans, national award winners, all-conference potential players, and then the coaching staff overall. So they considered a number of different things. I'm just going to cut to it here. When they looked at everything, they have Texas as the best program situated to have the most success via their power rankings over the next 2 years through 2026. Second is Ohio State, by the way, and third is Georgia. In here, I'll give you the top 5. 4 is Oregon, and 5 is Notre Dame. I mean, it kind of feels like a lot of the teams we're predicting to be in the college football playoff this year. But that kind of goes to our conversation about Arch and the quarterback stability. This is the Arch window, right? Through 26. They're looking at the Arch window like everybody else is looking at the Arch window and how Texas is going to maximize these years with Arch Manning. And, when I look at it, this season, though, more and more that I'm thinking about it, it's crazy, but it feels like it's going to be a little bit like it was last season. And not saying, last season, the identity wasn't something that we celebrated, but I think it surprised people because we initially thought the identity would be, it's going to be a prolific offense, very potent offense. And it was the most explosive offense in the country. But the most consistent element of the team was the defense. And I feel like that may happen again with all the talk about Arch. And Arch is going to have a good year. I truly believe that. So I'm not saying Arch is going to let us down. Arch is going to have a good year. But what may be the most consistent element of the team and the identity, it may be the defense again, actually, guys. Just because there are a lot of I'm going to say uncertainties on offense, just questions that need to be answered about the O-line, some of the receiver rotation, maybe the other tight end, a little bit about running back. But on defense, not a lot of questions. Probably one, maybe the interior D-line is the question, cornerback opposite Malik Muhammad. But it seems like I feel like the defense actually may be more consistent this year than even the offense.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that. And I think whenever you look at the true star power, where do you see more of it? I think that there's a high level of potential on the offensive side, but a lot of unknowns, right? That entire offensive line, a lot of new faces basically everywhere, aside from maybe Trey Wisner, Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore. They got run last year, but not necessarily as true number ones. But you look at the defensive side of the ball, and you got All-Americans at all 3 levels. You got future first-round draft picks, I think, at all 3 levels. And it's all guys that have been there and done it, right? A Colin Simmons, freshman of the year. Anthony Hill should have been a first-team All-SEC, should have been a Butkus Award finalist. Michael Taft, second-team All-American. And I think that we're all expecting a really big year from Malik Muhammad as well. So that's what you have. And that's the difference for me versus offense and defense going into the season. So could it change and we finally see, and I don't mean finally to say that, these offenses haven't been good over the years, but are we finally looking at a year in which the offense dwarfs the defense in comparison? Probably not, because I think that defense is going to have that much firepower.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Coach, I'll ask you this. Will the offense be better than last year? Straight up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, we've already got a proven running back, but you put C.J. Baxter in with that, and then you got Goolsby full-time now on the offensive line. Yes. And I think a dual-threat quarterback, I don't think there's any doubt we're going to have a better offense. Even though we don't have the standout receiver. Last year at this time, we knew what our receiving core was going to be.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a question this year, but we just know they're going to be good. We don't know for sure who's going to rise to the top. We just know they're going to be good. So yes, I think our offense will be better. By how much, that remains to be seen. But I do think they'll be better. And you're talking about the defense. One of the things that you shared with us, Rod, before we went on the air was the fact that Malik Muhammad is ranked as one of the best corners, in the country.
Yes.
And it's just unbelievable. Like you said, all 3 levels defensively, we've got potential first-round draft picks and All-Americans, and that hasn't been the case many years at Texas in the recent past.
No, I agree with you. And no, it's coach. I agree that it's crazy to say because the offense last year, what were they top 30? I think it was like a top 30 offense. I believe the year before that, I think 2023 they were top 15. I think they could actually be a lot better because I agree with coach. And you wouldn't have to do you wouldn't have to change a lot of things. I just think obviously having Arch Manning's skill set, coach brought up the dual threat ability, Arch's ability to convert on some of the deeper vertical routes downfield, being more comfortable in the progression, read offense, all those things. But just don't turn the football over as much and be better in the red zone, scoring touchdowns. If they do that, there'll be a better offense. Like just if they continue to do what they've done, but also clean up and improve in those two categories, red zone and turnovers, they'll be a better offense. And I think they will get better as a result of the skill set, the significant change in skill set at quarterback. So
man, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, Sark hasn't had a top 10 offense since he's been here.
Really?
No.
Is that right?
Top 15 has been, I think, the highest he was ranked, and that was in terms of scoring offense, and that was in 2023. It's just we know he's capable of having. He had the most explosive offense though in the country last season in terms of explosive plays, 20+ yard games. Nobody was more explosive. So that we see that. To me, you could make the argument that's the best offense in the country. You just depend on what you value. I value a lot of explosive plays, because it can really kind of change the math for you, right? Think about it. Texas was bottom 10, right? They were one of the worst teams in the country. I think they were like 125th or something like that in turnovers. And when you're that bad in turnovers, you should not win 13 games. But because they were so explosive on offense and because they limited explosive plays on defense, you really didn't see the negative impact of those turnovers. And it was really, and I really believe explosive plays were a big part of it, because they would, lose a drive or two on offense due to a turnover, but then they'd get it back because they'd score in a 2 or 3 play drive somewhere in the game, or hell, do that multiple times in the game.
There were a few times where Texas would turn the ball over and then get the ball right back because of another turnover, but it'd be further, or I guess closer to the end zone than where they turn the ball over. And you're like, how did this work out? Right? This should have been the case. Defense. The game that comes to mind for me was that Mississippi State game, right? It was 7-6 at halftime. It was a pretty ugly quarter. Texas gets into the red zone. They don't convert. They finally score a touchdown right before the half, and there's a fumble from Jaden Blue, and then you get out of halftime, you fumble again. You're sitting there just like, is this team going to help itself at all? And more so, is this team going to help the defense at all? Because that was a game in which Texas strung together some drives later on, but it shouldn't have been close, right? And we're all expecting coming in the game, if this game is close, it's going to be pretty high scoring. Why is that? Well, Mississippi State somehow scored 34 against Georgia the week before. And you're sitting there saying, okay, if they score with a brand new quarterback who is pretty good, Michael Van Buren, good quarterback, it's going to be because if they keep that game close, it's because they're scoring points because of the quarterback. So complete unknown, but I'm with you. If this team is even just 2 or 3 ticks better in the red zone, Texas will be blowing teams out with this defense.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's thank our final sponsor of the show, our friends over at South Point Dodge. You can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge, right now, they have over 600 vehicles in stock right now, folks, including the all-new 2025 Ram 1500. Get the real deal today and drive away in the all-new Ram 1500, proven to last. Plus, right now, you get employee incentive pricing with our friends over at South Point Dodge. That means you pay what the employees pay right now at South Point Dodge. You won't find a better deal than that. Score big today at South Point Dodge by going to see them off of I-35 in South Austin, or you can go online at southpointdodge.com and you can check them out there as well. We appreciate our friends over at South Point Dodge and their ongoing support of Orange Texas football. Don't forget, you got that all-new Ram 2025 Ram 1500, and also you got employee incentive pricing with our friends over at southpointdodge.com. That means You pay what the employees pay, and we appreciate them. All right, we appreciate you guys as well for sticking around with us and participating in the show today. Thank you as well to CJ. Thank you, Coach. We appreciate you guys, both you guys, for having a great show. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, the real MVP. Thank you to all of our sponsors, FlatCreekEstate.com. Also, we appreciate SouthPointDodge.com. Our friends over at VonLane.com. Remember, use that code OTF25. You'll get $20 off your first ride with our friends over at Von Lane. If we missed any of your questions or comments, we apologize about that. Direct them, please, to the gentleman at Coffee and Football bright and early tomorrow morning, 8:15. Bobby and Jerry will be there for you. And we'll also have our afternoon live stream for Friday. That'll be at 1 p.m. Tomorrow. We'll have their Friday live stream. I believe I'll be on it. I think Jeff Howe's going to be on there as well. Not sure. Jerry might be on it. Not sure who's going to be joining us, but we'll have a good time as we always do. So for CJ and for Coach and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.